Hello and welcome to the Ratio Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Ray, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Jack Slayton.
Hello.
No good evening, nothing like that. Come on now. Good evening to everybody out there.
I'm not sure what time of day it is.
I'm not either, man. But I do know one thing. We are here for an extra special episode. They're all special, but this has been a cat we've wanted on since the inception of this podcast, and I'm talking about Mr. Eric Bloom of the mighty Blue Oyster Cult. Jack, just back me up here. There's the story of the journey to this interview is just one we need to get down on paper sometime, or
Well, it's a big deal for the both of us. I mean, Johnny and I bonded over BOC when we first met. We both already had the tattoos, so that was kind of a special. It's always been a special thing for us.
Yeah, definitely. And he's just always, he's such a badass musician, songwriter, provocateur. I mean, there's so many things I can say about this cat. But with all the respect in the world, he is just one of the true badasses in rock and roll, you know.
Absolutely, hands down.
And just to be able to talk to him, and you know, just to hear these stories and just to get a sense of him, man. You know, Eric Bloom doesn't take any shit, does he, Jack Slayton?
No, he doesn't.
No, and we wouldn't want him to. And he's a badass, and such a good time talking to this guy. And make sure you go down and check out his their newest record, The Symbol Remains. And then just open up the catalog, and I mean, so many of these songs, so many of these amazing songs are written and performed by Mr. Bloom himself. So go down that rabbit hole, and we'll have that chat coming up with you in just a few seconds. But first off, we want to let you know, as we do every episode, that we will have the live shows coming in September. We'll have a date for that coming up soon. I know it's been a lot of, not delays, but we just needed to bring this cake out of the oven when it was done. And we've had some crew members that, you know, were on the mend from some health issues. And we got everybody back 100% now. So, Jack, you looking forward to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we'll have all the ticket information and everything coming soon. And we're looking forward to seeing you all out there. Even the ones that don't live here in town or around here, you know, you'll be able to tune in to the live stream. And, of course, they'll be up the next day. So we'll have all that information coming for you soon. But without further delay, please welcome Mr. Eric Bloom of the mighty Blue Oyster Cult. All righty, we are here with one of my absolute heroes, Mr. Eric Bloom from Blue Oyster Cult.
What's up?
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing okay. The whole month of June is off. Buck Dharma's 50th wedding anniversary. So that's the reason why we are off in June.
Wow, 50 years. 50 years. Yep. Well, you know, I want to get back to Buck, but I definitely want to talk about the first thing I want to really talk about is the badass newer came out. You know, it's been out for a little while now, some months, but the newest Blue Oyster Cult album, The Symbol Remains. It is absolute. I mean, just from the beginning, it's so amazing. And I want to talk about that. The album just kicks off with a stomper. You know, a song you wrote. You know, That Was Me. And it just is so ferocious from the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about the album and the song?
Oh gosh, well, it's you know, I did a few interviews about this, so you could probably find a lot of info about it. But everybody chipped in, of course. You know, we made the decision. You know, sure, let's give it one more go. Let's see how, you know, what happens. And I guess we were, you know, sort of dragged in. Let's try one more time. And I guess everybody had a little bit of something to give. Richie had a whole bunch of material that he was sitting on. Um, um, Richie played me The Alchemist probably at a rent-a-car, um, probably about 5 years ago. Now we're sitting here 2 years after the album came out, as we're doing this podcast. So maybe it's at least 5 years ago he played me The Alchemist, as Richie and I traveled together mostly. So I think we're traveling in a rent-a-car going from A to B, between two gigs. And, it just knocked me out. And I said, wow, that's a great song. And I said, what are you doing with that? He says, I don't know, just going to keep it in my pocket. So I always remembered it. So when it came time for putting songs towards this project, I said, Richie, we got to use that song. So of course he was thrilled to put it towards this new album, and he's pleased as anything else to, I think every time we played that song, his meter goes to 11. That he says he punches me in the arm. He says, I can't believe Blue Oyster Cult is playing The Alchemist, because I don't think he ever wrote it thinking that BOC was going to do that song. Because he's so prolific. He's working. We could do this whole podcast just about Richie. I'm one of his biggest fans, and I can't say I discovered Richie, because he's like his own entity. He's like a shining star, and but I sort of did, and we could do the whole podcast just about Richie himself.
Absolutely,
and he's a character, and back to your original question. Buck lives in Maryland. I'm living in New York at the time of the making of this record. So Ricky lives near me. Buck lives in Maryland. So getting together with Buck was not so easy. And for instance, the record before this, which was quite a while ago, Buck was living in Ithaca at that time. So I was driving up to Ithaca, which was a 3-hour drive from my house. So getting together to write the record before this was a little bit of a trial. But driving to Maryland to get together with Buck to co-write songs was a little more difficult. And going to Richie's house was a lot easier. It was an hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I was going to Richie's house, or writing songs with Richie was a lot easier than getting to Buck's house and writing with Buck. So, an anecdote I've told already was That Was Me, the writing of That Was Me. When we got serious about writing songs, I went to Richie's house and I said, all right, here's some lyrics that were sent to us by John Shirley. Which, as you know, and as a lot of BOC fans know, we've been writing songs with John Shirley for a number of years. And what happens is he sends us emails, which we print out, and I might have 9 or 10 John Shirley lyrics, and printed out, or maybe in an envelope, manila envelope. And you go through this stuff, and some of it you might like, some of it you might not. And the same goes back all the way to maybe Imaginos with Sandy Pearlman lyrics. And some of them you might like, and some of it you might not. And you might chop up stuff and say, well, this is the lyric for the verse, and this is the lyric for the chorus. And you might switch things around and use part of this and add some of your own, and such as it is for songwriting. So we're going through this stuff in Richie's basement. And I said, well, let's try this song, That Was Me. So Richie looks at it, and this is just before COVID. And Richie looks at it and says, I think we worked on this before. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, That Was Me. He says, like about 2 years ago, I think we worked on this song. I said, I don't think so. He goes, yeah, we did. And I go, I don't remember that at all. He says, hold on a second. And he's a lot more organized than I am. And we're in his basement. and he's, got a real studio, which I do not. So he goes through his computer files, and he finds recording files, and he starts playing back me singing "That Was Me." And I said, "Is that me singing?" He goes, "Yeah, that's you singing." And he says, we did this song already. And I said, "That's not me singing." He says, "Yeah, that's you singing." And it was like half the song finished. And it was "That Was Me," and it was everything except the bridge, which is that sort of reggae style bridge.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, we have the song done." He says, "Yeah, but we need a middle." And I said, "Well, let's work on that." So we sort of got to that section. I said, "Well, this is cool. We have the song half written already." I said, "I don't remember ever doing this." He goes, "Yeah, well, he came over my house a couple of years ago. And we worked on this." I said, "Well, it's totally out of my head. I don't ever remember doing it, but this is great." So we sat down. He says, "What do you want to do in that middle section?" I said, "Well, how about like a little, skiffle reggae section?" He said, "Fine, let's do that." I said, "Well, okay, we'll play this." And he says, "Fine." And I said, "How about a little James Brown thing, like dan dan?" He says, "Okay." So he starts playing that. So all of a sudden we got something going, and like a half hour later, the song was finished. So I said, "Well, we got something here." So he said, "Oh, chalk one up," So we put down a fast demo, and the next time the band had a rehearsal, we had something to show everybody. So the next time I went to Richie's house, and things progressed. So I think we sent a demo of 3 songs, which was The Alchemist and that song. And you have to refresh my memory because it was 2 years ago. What was the third song?
The third song you wrote was Tainted. It's it's a classic Blue Oyster Cult, like slow burn, Tainted Blood.
Tainted Blood.
Yeah,
Tainted Blood,
yeah.
Right. And that was that Richie and I wrote in a car, and also the other song.
Stand and Fight.
Stand and Fight.
Yes.
Also, yeah, Tainted Blood and Stand and Fight. Richie and I wrote over a period of time. I wrote the lyrics, or the beginning of the lyrics, to Tainted Blood and Stand and Fight on an airplane. Buck came over to me in the middle of this fertile writing period, the 3 or 4 months before we started rehearsing, where we had to come up with songs. And he came over to me before we boarded a flight, and he says, we really need songs. And he says, before we even need music, we really need lyrics. So he just triggered something in me. And so I got on the plane, and sometimes when you're on a plane and you're just sitting there and you just close your eyes, and just before you nod off, just stuff comes to you.
Yeah.
And I said, what kind of songs do we need? And I thought about, what would happen, if a vampire can live forever, why would he ever want to die? He can live forever anyway. The only reason why a vampire would want to die is if he killed himself. He certainly wouldn't want to die for any other reason. So how about a tragic vampire song where he wants to kill himself? And the only reason why he would want to kill himself is if he is loved a blues song about a vampire. So that's how Tainted Blood came to me. So I wrote, those 4 lines, which are in the pre-chorus. And I took that to Richie, and we fleshed that out between the 2 of us. And, that was my donation to that song and that melody. And then Richie and I fleshed that out, actually, mostly in a rent-a-car. And we were driving in New England together. And I think on our way from Boston Airport up to somewhere in Vermont or something. And I said, let's work on that song. So I was driving, and he took his laptop out. And as I'm driving, we just worked on the song. He had his laptop open, and we were driving together, and so that's literally how that song got fleshed out, with me driving and him. We bounced ideas between the two of us, and he was typing and I was driving. So such is the way songs are written.
Yeah. How many songs do you think over the years you've written in planes and in cars? I mean, just things coming to.
There's no answer to those questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote "Take Me Away" in my basement. Um, um, Aldenova just gave me a tape of basically "Take Me Away" was another song, and he gave me a cassette, and he said, here's a song I wrote for my album, his first album, I think. I don't know if it was his first or second album. And he said, here's a song, everybody likes the music and nobody likes the lyrics. It was about a psycho killer.
Yeah.
And he said, everybody hates the lyrics and they like the music. He says, so see what you can do with it. So I took it home, and he was absolutely right. The music was great, and the lyrics detracted from the track. So I just saw him the next day, and I said, can you give me just the track? So he gave me, another version of it with just blank, without he gave me just the music, just the track. So I took out a yellow pad in my basement and sat on the floor and rewrote it as "Take Me Away," just coming up with stanzas of, what it is now. And brought that into our rehearsal the next day as "Take Me Away" instead of whatever the Psycho Killer lyrics were.
Yeah.
And we happened to been writing that record at that time, and such as what we know now as "Take Me Away," and that was just an overnight rewrite.
I'm glad you brought that song up, because that song just ages like fine wine so well. It's such a stomper. It's just a scorcher. And the lyrics have that mystery to it that is it goes along with the video. There's like 9 movies in that one insane video you guys put out for that. What do you remember about that shoot for that?
Well, that we never have much say in those videos. Back in those days, either I can't remember whose hands we put it in. The management hires some video maker, and we just gave you guys have the budget. It's our money, but they find a budget from somewhere, and they hire a video director, and I guess they get a budget from the record company, and of course we always wind up having to pay it back from our royalties.
Yeah.
That's all budget mumbo jumbo that we wind up having to pay out of record sales, but that's not what this podcast is about. But believe me, we wind up paying for it in the long run.
It's about whatever you want it to be about, sir. You can talk about whatever you want.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you, yep. Video budgets are never free.
Mm-hmm.
So we wound up doing that, in one night. All our videos are done in X number of hours in one day. It's not a Michael Jackson, many day thing, many day affair. It's like all done as cheaply and as fast as we possibly can. Like the 2 videos we did, Joan Crawford and Burning for You were all done in 24 hours with no sleep.
Wow.
But which were really our first 2 videos. But the "Take Me Away" was done in LA. I can't remember the exact locations, but it was done in like a waterworks somewhere out in LA, just outside of LA. They found a some tubular looking place,
Yeah.
where it was like some underground waterworks where we were allowed to, there's a scene where they have the rented old Thunderbird. Then me and some model they hired, some girl that she could get, I don't know, she was a quote actress,
Right.
That plays my girlfriend, and went out into the desert somewhere, and I'm driving this rental car, And then we did the underground location, some some waterworks that they rented for a few hours.
Yeah. Well, I love your vocal on that song. It's amazing. Um, I want to get back. I want to go back a little bit. If you'd paint a picture for our listeners, what was it like coming up in as a musician in New York City back then?
I never was in New York City. I started in upstate New York.
Right. Well, surely you were around. Did you ever go into the city and see that scene that was developing there?
I started as a college student playing in
Mhm.
bar bands.
Yeah.
I never was really part of a New York City scene. Like, a lot of people like went to New York City and beat their brains out trying to play CBGBs or, the club scene in New York. I never had to do that.
Right on. Right on. Well, what does it mean if you take me back? Can you what do you remember about the first time you met Donald? Buck Dharma. What do you remember about that first meeting of you two?
We met in a music store,
Mm-hmm.
and we really didn't meet per se. It's an old story how we met in the music store, and the story's been told a million ways. It's the same as the cowbell story because everybody says, "No, I played cowbell. No, I played cowbell." So nobody remembers it straight anymore. But um, the the way I remember the meeting was I was working at Sam Ash in Hempstead, New York, which is no longer open. I was working at Sam Ash, which we don't have enough time to tell the whole story. But I, in 1968, moved to Long Island, New York, from upstate New York to take a job as an agent. And when I moved down to New York, that agency job disappeared because the bands I was supposed to work as a trainee in an agency fell through because the two bands I was supposed to work with um, did not get their visa permissions. It was the Crazy World of Arthur Brown and Brian Orker and Julie Driscoll. And at least that's what I was told. I have no idea if that was really true. But when I called that agency, his Premier Talent in New York, they said those bands could not get their visas and your job no longer exists. So sorry, we can't hire you. So the same day, I went to Sam Ash, where I'd been buying instruments as a band member, and I asked for a job, and they gave me a trainee position for all of $76 a week, which was a take-home salary of $52 a week. So, of course, this is $1968. I don't know what that translates to 22, 19, in 2022 dollars, but still can't be very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I took the job because I was living with family, and I had a 1953 Ford, and I could go back and forth, and which was my first car, and I could go back and forth from my sister's house and take that job and still crash on her couch and afford to live that way.
Yeah.
And took the job, and I was working there maybe 10 days. And Soft White Underbelly walked in to buy amps with their advance from Electro Records. So such was a fateful day, or we would not be talking today. So to say who was in that gang of guys from the band, Winters was there. And I believe it was Andrew who noticed the picture of Lost and Found on the wall, which I had put there in Sam Ash with other bands um, that were, like most music stores, they have pictures of bands on the wall, 8x10 glossies. So I had put that picture on the wall without the Sam Ash people knowing about it. And I believe it was Andrew who noticed the picture on the wall, and he said, "Oh, I know those guys." And I said, "Which guys is that?" And he pointed the picture of Lost and Found on the wall. And I said, "Well, that's me." And he says, "What do you mean that's you?" I said, "Well, that's me in that band." He says, well, our singer knows the guys in that band. I said, well, who's your singer? And he said, Les Bronstein. And I said, well, I went to school with Les Bronstein. So that was the instant connection.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and that's how the beginning of all these fateful connections began.
Right, right. Well, there's always been a mystery you guys have maintained that I just think is so cool with the lyrics, the way the way the band was always presented. I think it really separates you from any of your contemporaries in a lot of ways. What's next for Blue Oyster Cult? We're gonna let you get out of here, but what do you see? Do you see more records or just more touring?
I don't think we're planning on making anything new. Of course, we have these 3 nights in New York coming up, which is, as we speak now, it looks like all 3 nights are going to sell out.
Thank God.
Yeah. I looked at it the other day because I have a friend of mine who wants to go to the 3rd night, and I looked at it for him, and it looks like it's selling out. The 3rd night is selling out. There were no tickets for sale. So I got in touch with our management. I said, how come there's no tickets for sale on the 3rd night? And he looked at the Ticketmaster, and he says there's 8 seats left. So there's only 500 seats per night. So it's not that big a venue. So I don't know anything about, that's not my area, about ticket sales and ticket prices and those things. But this little venture of the 3 nights and the 3 records, 1 per night, and we're just in the creative part of that now and discussing what we're going to play and how we're going to play it and who's going to sit in and all that. It's all in the creative part now as we're discussing it. And we hope to have a few surprises. So we're going to do our best to make the whole three-day thing kind of special. And but apparently all 3 nights are going to sell out, and maybe there'll be some standing room. And of course, we do hope, we're looking into taping it. We do hope to have it be a special package of some kind. I don't really know the logistics of that and how it's going to be packaged and who is going to, how it's going to be for sale or whatever, but we hope to have that.
Right, right. Well, I just want to thank you for all your time and speaking with us here on the podcast today and all the great music over the years.
Any last question?
Well, anything you want to plug? Where's the best place for people to get and find out all the information about Blue Oyster Cult they need to?
Well, everybody knows that. It's blueoystercult.com. And we want to send out a special get well to Bully Gregmar.
Could you say that again, please?
Bully Gregmar, he's unfortunately been ill.
Okay.
And, he was the head of our fan club for many, many years. And I guess any of your listeners who know Bully, he's unfortunately fell ill.
Wow. We'll make sure that everybody knows that out there. Thank you so much. I want to thank the true rock and roll legend that is Eric Bloom from Blue Oyster Cult for appearing on the Ratio podcast. What a fun chat with that guy. And hopefully we'll have him back in the future for future chats. So that's it for our show this week. Stay switched on, and we will talk to you soon.